Hi, and welcome to the 7 distinctions that determine your coaching potential. So in this, before we get going, these distinctions are things that are measurable or scripted. So we're not going to get into psychology or the psychology of performance or communication strategy of a coach, even though those things are critical to success and maybe even more critical than anything listed on this list. But we're getting into things that people measure or people can really kind of script out. And some of this stuff, or most of it, shouldn't be new, but wait for the end for the punchline, because there's a concept here that's really relevant to determining whether or not you are reaching your ultimate potential as a coach or as a trainer. So number 1, training template or strategy. So that would be what your micro or macro cycles would be. So what does your week look like? And what does your month look like? What does your year look like, or multi-year even? So that would be number 1. Number 2 is things that are more of a daily cycle or daily events, and measuring those things, like an endurance sport, measuring volume, or measuring time per repeat, or in other sports, number of shots, or number of swings, or number of at-bats, things like that. So you're measuring something that you want to hit on a daily basis, or at least address, and often you can communicate with other coaches in your sport, and that's kind of the norm of how you measure what you're doing, whether you're being successful in training or not. So number 3, game or race strategy. So this may seem like one of the other softer things like psychology or communication, but if you get into, again, say an endurance-based sport where you're looking at splitting and you can calculate stuff like that, it's obviously measurable. And then in ball sports or game sports, you're getting into things like playing time and controlling the volume of playing time in terms of fatigue and injury prevention and stuff like that. So, that's measurable stuff. Number 4, longer-term competition strategy. Recognize that some out there don't have control over your competitive, your competitive strategy or your competitive cycle, but a lot of people do. And I like to look at, a boxing manager managing a career of a boxer as the best example of, a competitive, longer-term competitive strategy, where they'll have the boxer have one bout against somebody who's a really tough opponent, and then the next one may be someone who's easier to beat, and then managing that through the development of their career. But you can do that with teams, and you can do that with individuals in other sports. I think that's a hidden gem for developing elite athletes. Number 5, blood data and heart rate data. Probably incorrect in combining these two things, but they match up in a lot of good ways. Heart rate data right now is really measurable. It's really understandable. You can get it off of multiple devices. Blood data is going to be that way sometime soon, where you'll be able to get it. It's never going to be as easy as heart rate data, but you'll be able to get it in very inexpensive, very portable things that work with your mobile devices. So in any case, these are things that you have to go a little bit beyond in many cases to get feedback from, but when you dive deep and you really get some kind of understanding of how they kind of determine training gains or fatigue and things like that, it's very valuable to look at. Number 6, along the same lines, really the popular item today, sleep data. So you hear about it, everything you read, every other team is using sleep data, every league is adopting some kind of sleep data, and basically it's just using sleep data as a marker for, are you prepared to compete, or are you prepared to train, or are you recovering well enough? So that's leading to number 7. And this, to me, is the most important for competitive success in any sport, which is a technical distinction. So basically, becoming an elite technical athlete. If you look at any developed sport or developed activity like dance, the people with the best technique are the ones that win. And you can see that in any area. If they're hitting the critical pieces, they're going to be the ones that win. If they're not hitting critical pieces, you could be a master at all of these other ones, and you will not be an elite performer. There are always exceptions, but if you look deep, either those people get injured and don't make it, or likely they don't make it to the top anyways. And there are a lot of ways of looking into that. But no secret in any of these. If you don't know all of these, you're probably missing something, and you need to go back to school and figure it out. But these things all exist, and we're all aware of them. But there's one important distinction here. Most sports or activities will center around one or two of these as being the primary things that most coaches, even moderately successful ones, will gravitate towards. As an example, like if you're an endurance sport coach, you're probably going to look at the first two we mentioned, like training templates and strategy, and think, volume of a day or volume of a type of training set, which can get you very far if you're very good at that. But to ultimately be elite and reach your potential as a coach, you're missing out on 5 other things. And to continually develop elite athletes, you need to become a master in all 7. The other side of that, and many people have seen this as well, maybe you kind of put your finger in the other 7, but never really understand either some of them or never understand how they work together effectively. And that togetherness of understanding is where the real power is. So, if you are in the 1 or 2 and see that, hey, this makes a lot of sense and there's a way to kind of increase my potential, what I would recommend is not looking at all 7. Go to pick the next 1 or 2 and just use your best judgment and say, which next 2 can really impact the performance of my athletes the most. Focus on them for a period of time until you really understand how they integrate with what you already know, and continue that cycle of adding one of these to your mastery toolkit until you've mastered all of them, which could take a few years. But ultimately, your potential as a coach will be realized, and your athletes will be rewarded and benefit from it. So that finishes the 7 distinctions of reaching your coaching potential. If you like this, please share it with your friends or anyone that you think might get a value of it. And if there are other things that we missed on the list, please add them below. There's definitely more that you can look at that's measurable out there. And also, if you'd like us to do a deeper dive, to look deeper on any one of these to help with an understanding that we may be able to help with, put in the comments also, hey, we'd love to hear more about this.